And the name of the course is National Parks and Protected Areas of China. This is the first lecture of this course. It's the introduction to national parks and protected areas. In this lecture, we will introduce the course, and also the second part is the basic concept of case studies of national parks and protected areas. And the third part is future of global protected areas. I will teach the first part, then the second and third one will be taught by my colleague, Dr. Cao Yue. So you can see the image of Meili Snow Mountain, which is located in the northwestern region of Yunnan province. This is the place. This is the mountain. In this area, I make the decision from architecture, design, urban planning to the natural conservation. Because I had a bachelor degree of architecture design, master degree of urban planning. Both the degrees focus on how to develop the Mother Earth, now to conserve. In the end of 1990s, we had a chance to have a project in the northwestern region of Yunnan province, because at that time, the TNC from the United States put forward to establish Sanjiang-Bingliu National Park, a single national park in this region. And then the Yunnan provincial government invited Tsinghua University, including Professor Wu Liangyun, a very senior professor and influential professor in Chinese urban planning field. And also I was invited to join this team to build a national park and the protected area system in this province. At that time, I had a lot of chance to visit this area, especially when in 2002, I had a chance to have field trip to visit in the Meili Snow Mountains, and the nature shocked me, and I was deeply touched by the nature, by the beautiful scenery, by the culture, by everything of this mountain. Because in this area, the biodiversity, cultural diversity, everything is diverse in this area, and it's so amazing. It's a world natural and cultural heritage, and I think it could be top of the 5 world natural heritage around the world. So at that time, I'm making the decision to contribute my whole life to help China to build a national park and the protected area systems. In 2003, I finished my PhD dissertation with the name of Improving the National Park and Protected Area System of China, Theories and Practice. And I put forward the mentions objectives of Chinese national parks and protected area system. And also I make some actions, strategies, how to fulfill these objectives. In the last 30 years, I also, with my colleagues and students, we are the team of National Park and Protected Area of Tsinghua University. We have developed a lot of general management plans for the most beautiful Chinese mountains, rivers, lakes, and seashores. So this is the Mount Taishan, which is located in Shandong province. It was called the Museum of Chinese Culture. You know that China has a history of 5,000 years, and Mount Taishan represents the different period of Chinese history. It was also culture and natural heritage. Also, we are invited to develop general management plans for Mount Huangshan, which is located in Anhui province. We Chinese has saying that if you have chance to visit the 5 great mountains, you don't need to visit the other mountains. But if you have chance to visit Mount Huangshan, you don't need to visit the 5 great mountains. So you could see the beautiful of this mountain. We are invited to develop the general management for Mount Huangshan in the beginning of 2000 years. And this is the Juju Valley, which is located in Sichuan province, with the most waterscape around the world. Streams, lakes, waterfalls, and also this is area with a lot of Tibetan village living here for a lot of generations. We also developed the conservation plans for this area. This is the Sanjiangyuan on-site valley. Sanjiangyuan is the first Chinese national park, which was announced by President Xi Jinping a few days ago. And wow, it's so beautiful in this area. We were invited to develop some master plans for the Yellow River source area. And also we were invited to develop an interpretation plan for the whole national park. Not only in the daytime, but also you could experience the wonderful nighttime. You could experience the starry sky over on-site valley. So these are the examples of the general management plans around China for the national parks and protected areas. We develop not only the individual national parks, but also the protected area systems on the provincial level, such as the Inner Mongolia government invited us to develop the plan for this province to build a protected area system a few years ago. I am so glad to know that the Chinese government would like to establish national parks in China in 2013. And in 2018, it expanded from national parks to a protected area system with national parks as mainstay. So it's a huge work that maybe in the future the national parks will cover the 10% of the whole country, and the protected area system will cover the 18% of the whole country. You will get more information from this lecture. Professor Zhao Zicong will introduce how China to build a national park and protected area system in China. So this course will be taught by 7 teachers including myself and also Professor Yang Jun and Yu Le from the Department of Earth System Science, and also Professor Liu Xuehua from the School of Environment in Tsinghua University. My colleague Zhuang Youbo, Zhao Zhicong, and Cao Yue will give you the lectures about the Chinese national park system, the Chinese scenic area and world heritage, and also Cao Yue will introduce the wilderness of China and the other contents of this course. So I think and I hope you will learn from this course, because this course is the first global open course to introduce China's national park and protected areas. And also, I hope you could get some basic knowledge, the concepts related to national parks, protected areas, and natural conservation, especially in the situation of China. And also, you know that China has very interesting philosophy between man and nature, and also the Chinese government put forward and make a lot of efforts to practice the eco-civilization. So I hope that you could understand China's way and experience the natural conservation in the context of eco-civilization to achieve harmony between the man and the nature. Thank you very much.
Okay, can you hear me? Is my voice clear? Okay, thank you very much for Professor Yang's opening remarks. Actually, you have seen that Professor Yang has devoted his whole life to national parks and protected areas in China. So every time when he tells the story, I feel deeply touched. And I will go on to give the other parts of this lecture. Okay, before I introduce the structure of this course, would you please follow me to do some exercise? Please just close your eyes. Close your eyes. And we do some deep breath. Okay, breathe in. Breathe out. Breathe in. Breathe out. Imagine the air comes from the mountains, the grassland, in the remote places, in the beautiful landscapes. And you and nature become one. Okay, that's it. So I do this exercise to let you think about where do the clean air comes from. And if you have water, just take a bottle of water and let's drink some water together. Feel free to drink some water now. Where do the pure water come from? And I think you have already have your dinner. So what have you eat? The vegetables, the meat, all comes from the natural world. So the clean air, the clean water, and food all come from natural ecosystems. So some people may think that national parks and protected areas are remote places that have less connection between us and them. But actually, we have deep connections between ourselves and nature. So that's why we are delivering this course, National Parks and Protected Areas, because we think national parks and protected areas are related to everyone, and it provides benefits and products to every human being in the human society. So, okay. Let's go on to, I will give an introduction on the course structure. So this is the lecture 1 introduction, and I feel sorry, it's a bad news, but I need to tell you that lecture 5 is canceled because according to the university's recommendations, because the COVID-19 situation is serious now, so we canceled the field trip. And you could arrange the time at that day, and maybe you could find some opportunities to go into the mountains by yourself and with your friends. And then we have lecture 2 to lecture 4. It's about national parks, nature reserves, and scenic areas in China. Why do we choose these 3 types of protected areas? Because these 3 types are the most important types of protected areas in China. And then we have lecture 6 to lecture 8. It's about nature conservation in wilderness area, agricultural area, and urban areas. Could you distinguish these different 3 areas? What's the difference between them? Basically, we can use the concept of human impact to distinguish these 3 areas, because wilderness areas are the regions that has least level of human impact, and urban areas are the regions that has the highest level of human impact, and the agriculture areas is in the middle. So after these 3 lectures, you will get a comprehensive understanding of nature conservation that covers all terrestrial areas in China. And these lectures are all delivered by experts in their fields. Today you have met Professor Yang and me, and next week Professor Zhao Zhicong will discuss national parks. She has been participated and finished many general management plans for China's national parks and protected areas. And she's an expert in cultural landscapes. And then Professor Liu Xuehua from the School of Environment will introduce nature reserves of China. She's an expert in wild animal habitats. She has been doing a lot of research on giant panda protection. So it's a very interesting lecture. And then Professor Zhuang Yubo will give you a lecture on scenic areas. Scenic area is one of the most interesting type in China, because China has a very long history between the interaction between human and nature. So we form a very good or very long history of shanshui, the culture of shanshui, and it creates many famous mountains in China. So that will be also very interesting lecture. And then lecture 6, I will talk about wilderness areas, which are the regions that has least level of human impact. And my research focus is on wilderness protection and rewilding. And we have also created a national scale wilderness map for you, so that you could tell which are the wilderness areas located. And then Professor Yu Le will talk about nature conservation in agricultural areas. As you know, agricultural expansion is the most important threat to nature conservation. So how to balance food production and nature conservation is a very important issue. And how to conserve biodiversity in the farmlands is also an important issue. And at the last lecture, Professor Yang Jun will talk about nature conservation in urban areas of China. He's an expert in urban biodiversity. Actually, more than 50% or even 60%, 70% of human beings are living in urban areas. So how to protect and restore biodiversity in these regions is very important, and maybe you could have more opportunities to contact these regions, because not everyone has the opportunity to go into a very remote area, but we live in the urban area every day. So everyday landscape is very important issue. Okay, that's the whole structure of this course. I hope you could follow each lecture, and I believe that you could learn a lot. And for today's lecture, I have listed some learning objectives, and I hope that you could remember this, because I will give you some questions at the end of the lecture, and I prepared some gifts for you. So if you answer the question correctly, you can get some gifts, because these gifts are all very special. It's come from the COP15. It is the United Nations Biodiversity Conference that took place last month. So I have some videos and songs, and also bookmarks, and also some pens. So be careful about the learning objectives. The first objective is be able to define a protected area and understand why protected areas are important, and understand the diversity of protected areas and the complexity of protected area system across the countries. And the last point is start thinking about the future of global protected areas, because everybody sitting here is young people, right? Although I'm young too. So global future protected areas are very important for us because it will affect our daily life. Okay, let's start from some basic concept and case studies. If we look at the history of relationship between human and nature, we can divide it into several stages. At first, human beings are hunter-gatherer, and then we enter the horticultural and agrarian, which is agriculture civilization. And now we are in the industrial civilization. So can you guess, when did protected area occur? In which stage? It occurred in industrial civilization. Can you guess why? Because before industrial civilization, human has a relatively harmonious relationship between man and nature. But when we enter this industrial civilization, the human population increase and human settlements expand. So we cause a lot of destroy to the nature. And at this time, protected area occur, because we want to protect the remaining intact habitats for wildlife. So that is the age that protected area occur. So because of what we have done, what the human society have done in the industrial civilization, we are facing two crises. The first one is biodiversity crisis. You may heard that we are experiencing the sixth mass extinction. So that means the current rates of species extinction are 100 to 1,000 times higher than the background rates. And this is mainly because of human activities. So from the figure on the right, you can see that all types of species are threatened, including amphibians, mammals, birds, reptiles, and fishes. And another crisis is the climate change crisis. You may be more familiar with this one. And it's a huge task that we control the temperature under 1.5 degree increase and 2 degree increase, unless deep reductions in carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gas emissions occur in the coming decades. And these two crises are interconnected, so they affect each other. We cannot deal with one crisis without dealing with the other one. So how to deal with this crisis? We have two very important conferences in the human history. I think it's a milestone this year. It's a very big year for nature conservation. We have COP15 and COP26. COP15 is about biodiversity conservation. It's taken place in China last month. And next year we have the second stage, which will adopt the so-called post-2020 global biodiversity framework. And this framework will set the goals of biodiversity conservation until 2020 and 2050. And then we have COP26 for climate change. It is ongoing in Glasgow, UK now. So how to deal with this crisis? I think there are many ways or a lot of work we need to do. But one key element is nature-based solutions. That means we protect and restore ecosystem, and then it will provide benefits and products to human beings to deal with this crisis. And in nature-based solutions, one key action is called area-based conservation, which consists of two parts, protected areas and OECMs. I will explain protected areas in detail, and OECMs, we don't have a lot of time to discuss it today. If you're interested, you could check OECMs. So which are protected areas? Can you guess? And which are national parks? What are the others? Actually, all of them are protected areas, but only group 3 is national parks. I will explain why. So let's look at the definition that the International Union for Conservation of Nature proposed for a protected area. It is a clearly defined geographical space, recognized, dedicated, and managed through legal or other effective means to achieve the long-term conservation of nature with associated ecosystem services and cultural values. So protected areas, the first element is a clearly defined geographical space. That means it should have a boundary. A boundary is not so bad. It's a boundary, so every protected area has a boundary. And then usually most of protected area have a core zone and other zones. We call this zoning system. Because even in the protected areas, not every region is the same. So sometimes we separate, for example, the core zone and then the buffer zone and also the experiment zone. This is a zoning system for nature reserves in China. So in core zone, usually there has the least level of human impact or highest level of biodiversity. And the buffer zone is a buffer to protect the core zone from the human activities. And the environmental zone is the buffer of the buffer zone. So human activities can take place or tourism can take place in the experimental zone or sometimes in the buffer zone, but cannot be taken in the core zone. And that is a geographical space, clearly defined. And then it is recognized, dedicated, and managed. So that means every protected area has a management agency. There are a group of people, their daily work is to manage these regions. So that is management or governance. And its goal is to achieve the long-term conservation of nature. So that is the most important difference between protected areas with the other regions. For example, in urban areas, the main objective is not nature conservation, right? But in protected areas, the long-term goal is nature conservation. But we do not conserve nature for nature itself, because protecting nature will provide the products and the services that human societies need. That is called ecosystem services. For example, the clean air, the water, the food we get all belongs to ecosystem services. So that is the definition of protected areas. I hope you are all clear with that, right? And then let's have a group discussion. Please share with your classmates your experiences in a protected area. According to the definition we have explained, which protected area impressed you most? And please share the basic information, for example, the name, the location, and how did you get there, and your experience in the protected area, okay? So maybe 2 students, a group, and if you cannot find another one, you can join as a 3 students group. I will give you 2 minutes. Okay, start. Please talk.
下我们碰到没有。
好的，好的。Okay, thank you very much. I heard a lot of you discussion, very good discussion, but some of you are speaking Chinese. So because we have some online international students online, so I hope is there any volunteers can share your experience in English, and I have a gift for you. Any volunteer? Raise your hand. Anyone? Okay, yeah.
Sorry, my English is poor.
No, it's good.
The protected air impressed me. You press.
It's okay.
I'm a little nervous. I think the TsinghuaUni is the best air impressed me because it's a beautiful scenic, such as the snow mountains, and the grass, and the lakes. Blue lakes is so beautiful, and in there I can see some hogs and some cow and some
You can speak Chinese for some terms, yeah.
就是一些牧民，还有一些岩羊。
And
in there, in the mountain, I think is so. 就是 in there, I can 就是让我自己融入到那种自然环境当中，然后I think in there I think I can 整个人都升华了。
Thank you very much. Thank you. It's very good story. 稻城亚丁 yeah. Thank you. So it's a beautiful landscape and also high level of biodiversity, and you feel that you're touched by the nature. That's a very good story. Thank you very much. Oh, I need to give the thank you. It's the songs from the COP15. Okay, so let's move on. So I think you have discussed many protected areas, and actually each of them will be different because protected areas have many types or categories or management categories. According to the IUCN, we have 3 categories. I will not explain them in detail because of the limited time, but you could check the guidelines for applying protected area management categories from the IUCN website. So 1A is the strict nature reserves, which emphasize strictly protecting nature, and usually this type of area is smaller than national parks and wilderness areas. And the 1B is the wilderness area, which I will explain more in detail in lecture 6. So mainly it emphasizes the human impact is at the least level, and the nature is retaining their natural condition and their natural character and influence. In category 2, national park is one type that most people are familiar with because national parks provides a lot of compatible spiritual, scientific, educational, recreational, and visitor opportunities. So we will have some opportunities to visit national parks. So that's why many people are familiar with this type of protected area. And national park is the most important type of protected area. And category 3 is natural monument or feature. It does not necessarily protect high biodiversity areas, but could protect a specific natural monument. For example, this mountain is like a tower, and we just want to protect this kind of natural monument or feature. And then category 4 is the habitat or species management area, which emphasizes the protection of a particular species or habitats, which is different from national parks and wilderness areas, because national parks and wilderness areas have more focus on protecting the entire ecosystem process and ecosystem functions. However, this habitat species management area will focus on a specific species. And the category 5 is very interesting, which is called protected landscape or seascape. Maybe you don't know that the national parks in the United Kingdom, they do not belong to category 2, they belong to category 5. Because in UK, they have a long history of human intervention, and all the landscapes, you could call it cultural landscapes, is not remaining their wild condition. So some scholars may argue that there is not a real national park in the United Kingdom, and they try to rewild the national parks, but this is also a controversial idea. And the last category is called protected areas with sustainable use of natural resources. So in this kind of protected area, it allows sustainable use of natural resources, which is different from strictly protected nature reserves. And if we put all these categories on one chart, we can use the naturalness, the concept of naturalness, to distinguish them. So as you may imagine, the category 1A, 1B has the highest level of naturalness, and category 5 has the least level of naturalness. But in general, the naturalness in protected areas is higher than those landscapes outside protected areas. Okay, I think I have explained the definition and the categories of protected areas. And then we will use some time to explain what is a national park. Even the single concept of national park is very different across countries. So I just give some examples here. It's the definition from different countries. You can see the differences. And I will explain the definition in China. This definition, the national parks in China, this definition is proposed, this is guiding opinions, and we don't find an English version, so we translate it into English by ourselves. So maybe there's some errors. You could tell us. National parks are specific terrestrial and marine areas designated with main aim of protecting nationally representative natural ecosystems and achieving a combination of conservation and sustainable use of natural resources. National parks cover the most valuable natural ecosystems, the most unique natural landscapes, the most outstanding natural heritages, and the most biodiverse regions. National parks protect large areas with intact ecological processes, having global values and national identities, which are highly acknowledged by the nation. So from this definition, you may get some general idea about China's national parks. So basically, it should has the highest level of protection. You could see from the foremost, it should be the most valuable ecosystem, no matter in terms of landscape or biodiversity or ecosystem. So that is the most important characteristic of China's national park. And actually, national park is not a term that used only in one specific country. You can see a global national park movement. You may say that the first national park, the world's first national park, was the Yellowstone National Park in the United States, which was established in 1872. After that, this idea spread to all over the world, to every continent. So we list the established year of the first national park of these countries. And maybe for the students online, you could check the definition of national park in your own country. And I will give some case studies of national park system across the countries. For example, America, we need to know because it is the first national park was established in the United States. It is because the westward expansion and also the arts and literature has bring these beautiful landscapes to the general public. And also the United States, they want to find the identity of their nation because they come to a new continent. They want to find something that is different from Europe. And finally they find that national parks, the wild landscapes, is quite different. As I have mentioned before, that the landscapes in Europe has been impacted by people for thousands of years. But in the United States, the landscapes are mainly remaining a pristine condition, although the Indian people are living there for thousands of years. And for each country, we could draw a timeline to describe the important keys, the cornerstone of their national park system. And until now, we can say that the national park system is different from national park in the United States. If we say national parks, they have 63 national parks. But if we say national park system, it has 423 units. So national park system contains different types of parks, and national park is only one type. And this system is very different across countries. So I just give some basic idea to tell you the complexity of national park system across the countries. And also we can look at the other continents. For example, Australia, they have the world's second national park in the New South Wales. And the interesting thing is that their governance of national reserve system, you can see that 44% is indigenous protected areas, which means they are managed by the local communities, not the central government. So that is a very big difference from China. For example, you can see this kind of joint management in Kakadu National Park. And also in Europe, I use United Kingdom as an example. As I have mentioned before, the national parks in United Kingdom all belongs to category 5, protected cultural landscapes. They're not a real national park. And the reasons that the national park occur in UK is quite different from the United Kingdom. In UK is because the general public, they want to access the private land. So they fight and to pass a law which is called the Countryside and Rights of Way Act. And this established their national parks. So their national parks are mainly used for recreational use or tourism. So you can go into the national parks. What about China? Actually, China has a long history of a harmonious relationship between man and nature, which is quite different from the Western world. Because China has a very interesting philosophy, art, literature related to nature appreciation. You can see this from the poems, from the paintings. And ancient Chinese people believe that Wu Yue connect human to the land and the sky, and also control the wind and the rain. So these kind of sacred mountains, or we can say sacred natural sites, actually is the oldest method of habitat protection in the world, before the national park concept has occurred in the modern time. So although we say that the first national park is established in the United States, but actually for each country, they have their own history of nature conservation. And this timeline will be explained in the next lecture by Professor Zhao Zhicong, that how China is building a national park system and protected area system. So you can see China's national park system is built in the era of the ecological civilization, and it's different from most of the other countries, which their national parks are established in the industrial civilization. Okay, I think you have know what is a protected area and what is a national park. So why national parks and the protected areas are important? You may know the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. Actually, protected areas can contribute to this important agenda in multiple ways. For example, the SDG 13 and 14, climate action, life below water and life on land, is highly related to protected areas. because protected area is the cornerstone of biodiversity. So it is very important for the life on land and also below the water. And also protected areas can fight the climate crisis because the primary forest can sequence the carbon. And also besides these functions of biodiversity conservation and to deal with the climate change, it also provides, for example, the SDG 1, no poverty. It can provide the economic opportunities to the poor people, which they are living in the protected areas or around the protected areas, local communities, because the tourism could provide more economic opportunities to these local communities. And also they are important to human mental and physical health because many people now are going hiking and camping in the mountains because they are full of stress in the urban areas. They have too much work to do. So sometimes they go into the wild. And that's good for their health. And I mentioned in the beginning, it could purify air and water for cities, maintain wild species, and also this kind of ecosystem services. So that's why protected areas are important for us. Okay, the last part, I will talk about the future of global protected areas. Because we have already know the definition of national parks and protected areas. But how should we develop a protected area in the post-2020 era? And this is also a very complex and comprehensive question. So we only focus on one key question, that is how much should we protect and where should we protect? A question for you, how much land should be covered by protected and conserved areas? You can have a think. Who support A? Raise up your hand. B. Oh, there are 5 students. B. C. Who supports C? It's more than B. D. Who chose D? Oh, it's more people. Who chose E? Only 2 people. Oh, I think you provide hope. You provide the hope because many scientists, they propose that we should protect 50% or 30%, but many governments or other agencies will think this is a very ambitious target that we cannot achieve. But actually, most of you choose C or D, so I think we still have hope to conserve the Earth. So the current state, the HE target, which is proposed in 2020, proposed at least 70% of the world should be protected. And according to the latest data, we can see that almost 70% of the land is designated as protected areas or OECM. So that means we almost achieved the goal we set in 2010 to 2020. So, but what goal should we set after 2020? There's a global survey of conservation scientists to ask them how much should be protected. And there is a very strong agreement that 17% is not adequate to conserve biodiversity. And many NGOs, agencies, and scientists propose the idea of nature needs half, or half Earth project, calling to protect at least 50% of the Earth. So that means more than half of the terrestrial area should be protected areas, or OECMs. So that is a huge amount of land. And in the ongoing debates of the post-2020 global biodiversity framework, you can see that target 3, this is the first draft. It calls to protect at least 30% globally of land areas or sea areas. So that means 20% may be the goal that we set in the next year that we need to achieve before 2030. So that is also called a 30-30 target for protected areas at the global scale. But this is only a number, the issue of number, but where should we protect this 30%? So we conducted a research to try to answer this question, where to protect and how much should we protect. Our team and also Professor Gong Peng, he's now in Hong Kong University, and also Professor Ma Keping in the Chinese Academy of Sciences. We form a team to answer this question and publish a research called Cost-Effective Priorities for the Expansion of Global Terrestrial Protected Areas, setting post-2020 global and national targets. So what we have done is to find the regions that are high biodiverse or have highest value of conservation. What we have done is to overlay the 7 templates. So the 7 templates, each template has identified the regions at the global scale to tell you that, oh, these regions are important for biodiversity. And then we overlay these 7 templates to get a map of conservation priority zones. So if the dark green means it has more templates that has identified this region is important, so we set a higher value of conservation priority. But you will know that we should also consider the cost, because we cannot protect all the areas because we need to have a low cost. So we overlay it with the low impact areas, or you can call it wilderness areas. I will explain in the lecture 6. So that means the regions which has the lowest impact of human beings. So in these regions, if we establish protected area, it has lower cost. So if we overlay the conservation priority zones and low impact area zones, we got the regions called cost-effective zones for protected area designation. So these regions are the ideal places that we can establish new national parks and protected areas. And if we look at the global map of CEZ, the cost-effective zones for protected area designation, we can see that it almost covers 40% of Earth's land surfaces. And if we overlay this map with the existing protected area, so we can see the target area that we need to expand our protected area. The blue part is the regions that already been protected in the protected area system, but the red regions are the unprotected CEZ. So that means these regions are important for biodiversity. They have low human impact, but not been covered by protected areas. So these regions are the ideal places or target regions that we think we can establish new protected areas. So that's the answer we try to, our team has provided. And we calculate in each scenario what target should we set for the globe and for each country, for each parties to the Convention on Biological Diversity. And we proposed 3 targets as the conservative, moderate, and ambitious scenarios. But because sometimes you cannot achieve the ideal goal in just 10 years. So we propose an ideal, a long-term way for the protected area system. If you're interested, you could also download the data set. We provide the GIS, Geographic Information System data set, in this website of this paper. So if you are interested, you can download the data and zoom in to check your own country. We have provided where could we establish new national parks. Okay, besides coverage, because what we are discussing is about the future of global protected areas, and we only discuss how much should we protect, where should we protect. So besides this coverage, what else should be considered in developing a protected area system in the future? Let's have a 2 minutes discussion. You can discuss with your classmates. Okay, let's look at the answer together. So besides coverage, we should also consider whether it is ecological representative, because we have many types of ecosystem. So the ideal state is that in each type of ecosystem, we have ideal protected area system in that ecoregion or ecosystem. And also, another one is that whether our protected areas system has covered the areas of particular importance for biodiversity and ecosystem services. Because sometimes our protected areas are located in the wrong place, where it has poor value for conservation. And also we should also consider the management or governance, because only drawing a line on the map doesn't protect in the real world. So it has to have a management agency and a group of people dedicating their life to the management, which is making it effectively and equitably managed. And also it should be well connected. So that means because of the isolation of protected area, the species cannot move between one and the other protected area, especially in the context of climate change. So when the climate change, the species, their suitable habitat also change. So climate change will make some protected areas not effective anymore. So in the climate change, we need to connect the protected area system to form a network of protected area system. And also it should integrate it into the landscape and seascape, a wider landscape. So that's why we will discuss nature conservation, agricultural area and urban area, because only consider nature conservation in protected areas is not enough. Even we protect 50% of the earth, what about the other 50%? So it should be integrated into the landscape and seascape in a wider scale. Okay, we have finished the main content, and let's do a summary of today's lecture. So I list some questions here. The first is, what is a protected area? The second is, why are they important? And third one is, what are the similarities and differences across various categories of protected areas and across the countries? And last one is, how to develop this system in the post-2020 era. Okay, I think, I hope you could think about these questions, and you may have your own answer. And actually these questions, I don't think they have a single answer. So I encourage you could form your own opinion. Okay, that's today's lecture. Thank you very much. Thank you.